the Honorable Winnie Kiza. Very nice to have you.
Good evening, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
And allow me to introduce Honorable Winnie Kiza as a new frontliner, someone you'll be seeing a lot more frequently. And also extend extend our condolences to the other frontliner, Ofono Opondo, who suffered a family bereavement and is unable to be with us. Mr. Ofono Opondo, I believe you're watching us from Molanda, and we extend our condolences to you as the frontline. We've been having this discussion upon the loss of a very close relative. We have from Kavula County, the Honorable Asimwe K. Enos. Very welcome, sir.
Good evening, viewers. Thank you so much for seeing us, Charles.
And from Kimanya, Kabonera, we have the Honorable Dr. Abed Bwanika. Very nice to have you, sir.
Thank you, and good evening, viewers.
Dr. Bwanika has been very vocal on this coffee deal, on the coffee discussion, and we hope to benefit a lot more from. So let me start with a very broad question. I believe that after weeks of intense discussion, both in the regular media and on social media, of this coffee agreement, it's been shared extensively, that we have seen. Chairman Mao, you are a lawyer. The Attorney General gave what many people have interpreted as a very legalistic answer to his endorsement of the agreement. He said, the agreement does not violate any Ugandan laws. I looked through it, it doesn't violate any Ugandan laws. What are the issues with the agreement itself, even before we go to the contents of the agreement?
Charles, I don't believe that Ugandans are being emotional or sensational. In this case, usually I am the first to blast the media for sensationalizing issues. This time, the media is acquitted. In primary school, there was always a question, name the major cash crops of Uganda. Number one, coffee. Then you add cotton, then tobacco, then tea. We knew that they would always ask us, what is the difference between cash crops and food crops? I mean, this is the foundational point of view in this matter. But if you ask me, what is the problem? The problem, in one sentence, a failure of policy formulation. Whatever a government does must be based in a process of public policy formulation, which is then communicated, feedback is sought, input is looked for. I think most of the government ministries and departments in Uganda are very poor in communicating. I think the only institution which communicates well and seriously in this country is the UPDF. We had the operation in the Congo. There was a lot of noise. The UPDF communicated very well, and this has been understood. Why they did it and so on. Just a little background. The coffee industry is changing like everything else in the world. But how does the government bring that home to the politicians, to the farmers, and transporters and traders, restaurant owners? There's a bit of overproduction by some of the other countries like Brazil and Vietnam. Now, when there is oversupply, it means it is now a buyer's market. It is no longer what? A seller's market. So there is a lot of intense competition, and therefore the buyers now want consistent supply. And that may be difficult if you are depending on rain, you don't use fertilizers, you don't have a serious value chain. So they're demanding consistency. The buyers are also demanding higher quality. So there must be a measure of quality assurance. And of course, like everything else, the buyers are now demanding what is called specialty coffee. Now, specialty coffee means you must have the ability to penetrate niche markets. Now, the government knows that. The government has that information. But just to show you the shambolic manner in which public policy has been formulated in this case, the Minister of Agriculture says his ministry, of course he's a new Minister of Agriculture, but he says his ministry knows nothing of that. Charles, you will be shocked that the Uganda Coffee Development Authority is an agency under the Ministry of Agriculture. So, how can a parent say, I know nothing about this child's marriage, because this is a marriage. You hear rumors that you have a daughter-in-law and even grandchildren. And people even tell you they look like you, they talk like you, but I know nothing. I've never heard of them. There was no ceremony. I wasn't invited. I never received the counsel, as it is our culture. So, the Prime Minister needs to just understand this is a failure of public policy formulation. The details, we can go into it. The law and so on. But the Minister of Agriculture disowned this thing. Now Ugandans are disowning it. But it has a footprint. Coffee has been one of the least regulated sectors, because when the NRM came into power, they liberalized coffee. Now, this matter is of concern because it is a direct threat to the millions of smallholders who own largely 2 to 5 acres. Those have been actually the backbone of the coffee production. They have been doing their thing in a certain way. They grow coffee, then they put beans, they put bananas, they put mayuni. So the government comes up with this new Coffee Act, which tries to put some regulation. I do not know the response to the regulation, but the regulation itself was resisted to a certain extent. But now we are creating basically a government parastatal to compete with the private sector. Imagine if the UPDF construction unit starts bidding for jobs.
Which actually it is.
No, it is just awarded directly for purposes of cost cutting. In any case, it doesn't have the capacity to do everything. But we are seeing now a foreign investor. So the anger of the public is also about this obsession with foreigners. I mean, if Dr. Bed Bwanika invests, he will never be given a medal as an investor. But anybody with a lighter skin is always celebrated. So in a way, it throws back the question to the president. Where is our center of gravity as Africans? We are losing it. So the Prime Minister has her job cut out. She should analyze her finger should be on the pulse of the small farmer. The small farmers feel threatened. And mark you, coffee is now also becoming a plantation crop all of a sudden. And it is not just about foreigners this time. There are many people I know who for the first time are growing 200 acres of coffee, 300 acres of coffee. I had never seen that while growing up. I always knew that you can see tea on a whole hill.
Large scale.
Yes. Now, when a government is taking initiatives such as this, it may be good in order to enter that market with the force to compete. But how do you start the process of formulating the policy, get it accepted, and explain it successfully?
Okay.
And that has been a failure of public policy formulation and a failure of communication, and then basically recklessness and the failure to do due diligence, because there are privileges that are too much, but also the party in question already has a record. Now, if you have a record, we must consider your record. Assuming tomorrow there's a new TV station. Let's say you are a disaster on Frontline, which you are not, definitely. Assuming you're a disaster. Then people say, now this one who failed to manage Frontline has been brought here. Why should you... That now is impunity.
Okay. Yeah, I've been told that from very good sources that the investor in question came to this country around 2014 to sell the hospital project. In the middle of the discussion about the hospital project, the president expressed his desires, like he does many times, about value addition and what he has called for many, many years the donation of the extra value to foreigners in exportation of raw coffee. And that's where this particular investor picked the idea, went and mobilized internationally to come back with the proposal. That proposal is captured in what is called a project implementation agreement of 29th April 2015. They inked it. Now, two projects that have attracted a lot of controversy, running almost side by side. And she mobilized a lot of people from, investors apparently, from the Emirates to come and bankroll the project. But they're demanding for... If you look at the amount, the number of concessions or concessions being demanded for, or that this agreement grants, I think that's where is a fairly critical point of discussion.
But can't Ugandan do this? In Thailand, the Thai government realized that people love Thai food. So the government decided to create a fund, and they just empower people to go abroad. They send you to Chicago, to Milan, and say,
you open a
Thai restaurant supported by the government. So surely.
I think it's also the idea behind the Chinese restaurants all over the world.
Yeah, but tell me, can't the Kabushengas of this world come together with our... Okay, if it is about a Muzungu, Dr. Clark is a Ugandan who is white. If it is about the white skin, we have ours also to compete with the whatever the name is. We have our white man also, who even has a record as a successful mayor of Makindye division.
Well, Honorable Winikis, that actually
and he's called Busulwa.
That actually is at the crux of the matter, because coffee production affects your person up the mountains of Rwenzori,
Yes.
who is producing a basin of coffee beans. But also, it affects Bugisu Cooperative Union that has survived on coffee for all the years and educated children, actually built in Mbale City, if you want to look at it that way. It also affects a Kabushenga who put his years into investing in coffee. I've been to Rujeyo and visited his farm. But also you have very many other people. You people producing, yes, at large scale of coffee production across the country, people putting in their own money. What is government actually thinking in saying we need somebody to help us add value without even bothering to consult the other people involved in coffee production in the country?
Charles and the viewers, as a country, we are at crossroads. Just like Chairman Mao has put it, to me, I look at it as a self-centered leadership as compared to a leadership that should be people-centered. Here we are looking at our government even violating its own regulations and laws. You will remember that in 1987, we came up with a law on privatization. We had the Coffee Marketing Board. We had many of these cooperative unions linking the farmers to the buyers. All these were done away with by government. And at that time, government was saying that they don't want to create a monopoly. They said government was a bad business person. So they said, let people deal in the buying and selling of coffee. And these buyers are everywhere. Government has even allowed other investors, actually Ugandans and non-Ugandans, to come and construct factories in our villages. They are all over on the Renzoris, buying coffee from the farmers. And I think the farmers are comfortable with that. Now, when they create a monopoly, kind of, and this individual is given preferential treatment from the already existing buyers and sellers of coffee, is given a lot of incentives, tax exemptions, and a period tagged to when the person should be given all these incentives, including bringing people who will pay nothing to this country. Ugandans are saying our government is violating Article 21 of the Constitution, which says that all Ugandans are free and have the freedom from discrimination. This discrimination runs in terms of political, in terms of cultural, in terms of economic. So when you create a monopoly, in a way you are sidelining other Ugandans from doing business.
Wouldn't you appreciate where the president, for example, is coming from? Because I'm told that the president is possibly the only friend of the investor at the moment, because other people have since developed some doubts, that in spite of all that you're talking about, you're still largely exporting raw coffee. That this particular investor is only at 60,000 tons that they're supposed to process. Represents only maybe 6%? 5-6% of the entire export crop that we're producing out of
now,
this country.
Charles, let me tell you, yes, the president is the only person who is a friend to this investor, like you have said. And I think it is out of this friendship that he has with the investor that caused him to even put his words on paper to say that this particular investor should be given the deal of Lubowa, which has gone bad.
Now, before, wouldn't you appreciate his frustration?
First wait. We are equally frustrated with what came out of Lubowa. The president was the only friend. Remember, in the Lubowa issue, Minister of Health came up with a dossier that was saying, look, I think as a country, we need to invest in our own health facilities. It was the same Penet who was on the deal. Government said no. The Minister of Finance insisted we must give this money to the person. The money was given. A go-ahead was given. The same person is brought by the president without doing any due diligence. In this case, there was no need for even due diligence because it is in black and white that the person cannot do what? Cannot perform. We are again handing him all the Ugandans and say, I mean her, we are handing her all the Ugandans to say now deal with all the coffee farmers and determine the prices. The fear of the Ugandans is that when this person is given express monopoly, he will determine the prices. He's not looking even at the value chain of the coffee. And I can tell you, many of those exporters and coffee dealers are going ahead to touch the common farmer. They have even provided extension services to these farmers to ensure that they produce quality coffee. Okay. And I can tell you, Charles, that Uganda, since 2016, has been increasing in the production and the quality of the coffee that we are producing. So I really don't see why all of a sudden we are just cutting this whole chain and saying we are bringing in one person. It would have been that possibly Ugandans have failed.
Honorable.
And then maybe before he even comes in, the issue of saying, you know, you have been in an international organization, the International Coffee Organization. You pull out from it, and then here you are giving license to an individual to begin trading at large. And yet the many Ugandans, small and big operators, have been making the coffee trade grow and bring a lot of money to the economy. So to us, we believe the Ugandan people are being sabotaged. They are holding them at ransom, making them poorer and poorer for the next 10 years.
Honorable
And that is the
I
controversy.
believe that you've read through this agreement. Are we addressing it merely with bias, or do you actually think it's a bad agreement? What do you think?
Charles, thank you so much. My take on the agreement, I would say Ugandans are averse at anything that involves concessions, tax exemptions and all that, that now we've turned out to be pessimistic on everything. We don't look at the beauty in any contract that the government has entered with any investors at this point. And I think it's what has brought us to this point, that we don't look out for the greater good of what this contract will bring to us as a nation. Just like you've mentioned it, if you look back, the president has attempted several times to get investors come and do value addition in our coffee. Actually 9 times on record, including Tata Uganda at some point. They were cleared by Jinja municipality to make an investment of $20 million, but they never made it. Here we have an investor who has come and said, well, I can invest $80 million to add value to your coffee. So to me, the contract should not bias us, not to look at the detailed or the bigger picture of what would happen in case this project is to take off. Yes, there are some, I would say there could be some 2 or 3 clauses that we need to look at and scrutinize properly, possibly like what she was talking about, clauses that talk about having exclusive priority in setting being supplied coffee too. Then there was also another contract about prices. But even those 2 contracts,
Those clauses.
those 2 clauses, sorry. When you look at the coffee, the national bill on coffee of 2018, you realize that at some point, which I think we should have done by now, Uganda Coffee Development Authority should have an auction system for coffee as a way of selling our coffee as a country. Meaning that if you look at that clause, possibly in anticipation of UCDA doing that, this person who is willing to invest $80 million in our economy had to cushion herself or themselves against such clauses within the bill. Because if we actually analyze this whole agreement, it didn't start yesterday. It started in 2015 when the president visited the Emirates and attracted investors from the Emirates to come invest here. Of course, now, as you said, with her friend or with his friend, Pinetti, who connected her to all these investors. And as you've said, the president had always had this wish of us adding value on our products, not just donating our products.
You said, Honorable, 9 times.
9 times.
Attempted 9 times. What
With different companies.
Yes. What lessons have we learned? And how different, how are those lessons reflected in this particular agreement?
Several big companies, coffee companies, from Starbucks to Tata had already mentioned it, and other big operators in the industry. He kept approaching them to come and process coffee from here. For example, Neso has, they're processing coffee from South Africa, they're processing coffee in Ghana, which we consume here as Nescafe. But it's consumed, it's actually processed in Africa. But Uganda, which is among the biggest producers in the country.
It is the leading coffee producer in the,
exactly.
on the continent today.
We don't have the big five investing here to process our coffee because they are comfortable taking our green beans and processed coffee at a lower price, process it and return to us to consume at a higher price.
Chairman Mao started with a very interesting anecdote of that primary school question. A country so dependent
on coffee,
a country so proud of its coffee productivity, why after possibly 100 years of growing coffee, is the president still looking outside to add value to coffee? Or is government still looking outside to add value to coffee?
That's the point. One, the industry is not yet standardized. What should have been the big investors or the big five operators in the coffee sector at the international level, they think our system is not that organized to a level that they will get what they want in terms of quality, in terms of standards. So to me, when you look at this agreement or the direction the government is taking, we are taking a direction of standardizing our system.
Yes, and the bigger question is...
We're taking the direction of improving on the quality.
Yes, and the question, Honorable, is you've read the lamentations and frustrations of the proprietor of Good African Coffee,
yes,
which has since closed shop, and the direction he wanted to take, securing shelf space in some of the biggest supermarkets globally with processed coffee. You've read and heard about the frustrations of your colleague, Honorable Nandala Mafabi, and his Bugisu Cooperative Union, which is heavily
indebted.
Not just heavily indebted, has had a lot of turbulence over the last few years. What direction are they looking at? Moving from exportation of green beans to exportation of processed coffee. We did make an experiment with producing Star Coffee out of Arusha, Mwanza, northern Tanzania, which was partly Ugandan. It has struggled, which was supposed to produce instant coffee and also coffee pellets. The examples of attempts to take the coffee industry to the next level, are extremely, are many. The question is, as a government that relies heavily on coffee for its export earnings, why haven't we looked internal? Why haven't we tried to prop up this industry from here?
Which Ugandan has the capacity to invest in an industry of billions of money?
Did we look? Did you try to find them?
I believe, wait a minute. First of all, let's go back to what Chairman said. We have not, the policies were not there, first of all. Because to me, to standardize the sector, we had to start with the policies. That's how we came with the National Coffee Policy of 2013. That's how we came with the National Bill of 2018. That's where we've reached.
Which is actually still very controversial. Many people don't understand it.
It's controversial because it's attempting to put us to a level where we've not been.
Okay.
We are used not to being... when you say, first of all, for you to get space on international shelves, there must be some level of traceability. You must trace where the coffee is. How do you do it? You can only do it if the farmer is registered. They must know that this coffee is coming from Enos's farm. This is what he used. This is the quality of the bean we are getting from him. And then eventually, document all that.
Are we still talking about a country that examined primary children on Uganda's leading cash crops?
We didn't have the resources.
Where people still had to answer.
That one takes
number one,
me back.
Coffee, and then...
Charles, that one takes us back to where NIM found us and where we've reached.
Okay.
How much we were collecting in taxes and how much we are collecting now. Then we didn't have the capacity to do all this. Now we are moving to a level where we have the capacity to do all we want. So to me, let's look at the good in this contract. yes, whatever clauses they have raised or that have raised dust, we can sit down as leaders or as government or as stakeholders. Because myself, I'm a coffee farmer. I have a plantation, as he mentioned it. My major interest in this is because I'm looking at myself getting a better price than what I expect to get without
an agreement like this.
Without
processing.
No, without an investor of that nature. Without processing, without adding value. Otherwise, my farm gate price will be totally low.
Okay.
But if there's a processing line, possibly, it will be better.
Dr. Wanika, you've been very vocal on this agreement. Do we actually have a bad agreement, or are we just biased, or have we failed to read the agreement?
First of all, I grew up in coffee. I've not just learned coffee. Coffee took me to school. I'm coming from Masaka. In my village, we used to have, that is Chabakuza, they are viewing us. We used to have the best coffee factory in the Buganda region. From there, coffee used to come to the coffee marketing board here on its way to Mombasa. Burundi is the poorest nation on the African continent. It has coffee on the shelves of Starbucks. Rwanda has 2 brands on the shelves of Starbucks. I'm going back to the statement of Chairman Mao. 100 years in memorial. Coffee has been our main cash earner. Last year, it was second to gold. We got $638 million from coffee. I don't know whether gold will sustain, but at least I know that coffee has been our best earner. Why are we here discussing that some wonderful miracle by a woman from Italy coming with not 80 billion, it is $80 million. $80 million. She's coming here to do a miracle. Who bewitched Africans? Who bewitched us that even things we can do, the whole nation is in chaos because some white person is bringing $80 million to invest in a commodity that we know is the most important. It provides jobs, provides forex, provides everything. We cannot, out of our budget, get $80 million. Identify people in this country who are there. You have mentioned all those names. They are there. They can. That factory is not a miracle. Number 2, government does not have coffee. Minister of Finance, you made an agreement. Do you have coffee? That coffee belongs to us, the farmers. Does government do you have coffee? You are guaranteeing that man, that woman, do you have coffee? You say, for us, the farmers were not part of your agreement. The Minister of Agriculture, who are supposed to represent us, you said they are not. Kasharia said they should not be part of the agreement. I don't know a farm of coffee for government. I don't know anywhere. I don't think even they have an acre apart from these
demonstration farms.
Demonstration farms.
Or research farms.
So if you want to go in an agreement to guarantee priority, procurement, the highest quality of coffee, and you don't have coffee, what kind of agreement is that? I didn't do law.
Let me read the controversial clause of the agreement that many people from, including Uganda Coffee Development Authority, Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Trade, and even Minister of Finance to an extent, are disturbed by. It's clause 4.2. 4.21 reads, Government of Uganda undertakes that it will take all reasonable measures to give priority of supply of coffee to the company before registering any contract or acknowledging any arrangement for the export of coffee beans, including screen 18 and above, so that the company will have ample supply of coffee to sustain its operations.
You hear such a clause. Number one, coffee is not oil, where government has all they own oil on our behalf. But coffee belongs to the people of Uganda, the farmers, the traders. Government cannot go ahead to enter into an agreement on behalf of the farmers, on behalf of the traders, without their involvement. Number two, you are guaranteeing priority procurement. Screen 18 and above, that is the best coffee that Ugandans can produce. You want to go in our farmers, in the factories, you get out the best coffee, give it to that lady without the involvement of the owners, the farmers. Number three, Uganda's coffee, our coffee, is one of the best qualities on the international market. Our Robusta coffee is the best because it is grown in the altitude 1,000 and above. The Arabic coffee in Bugishu, from Kasese, Nebi, is also one of the best globally. So this question of people saying market will be there. Everyone is looking for Ugandan coffee.
Because they use it to blend the other coffee.
Yes, they use it to uplift other coffees because it's the best. How comes these are 70, 100 years, we cannot invest into the machinery, into the factory? What Honorable is talking about, we all understand that. We want to add value to our coffee. But why are we looking for someone? And as Honorable Mao has said, this lady has issues. Today the Parliament, the Finance Committee of Parliament went to Lubowa. They went to check the site. I found them in the lobby of the Parliament. They said they found nothing there. There is no activity, there is no contractor. We gave that lady a promissory note of 348 billion. 348 billion. She doesn't have money. There is no work at Lubowa. And you want to give her more commitments?
Wouldn't you want to give the committee time to find out and share its findings from?
No, I'm telling you what is there, because this is not rocket science. Even you can go and see there is no work. There is no work. That report is coming on the floor of Parliament. I'm telling you because I've talked with them. I have interfaced with them because they came out. There is totally nothing. We had put 319 billion extra in our budget for that lady. We know that she has done nothing. So this agreement is not in the interest of the people of Uganda. It is not in the interest of our economy. It is true that we need to invest in value addition to ensure that we get instant coffee, the capsules that she wanted to produce, the pods, and all those types. But we cannot do it that way. My argument is that we should identify Ugandans involved, investors involved in the coffee. We have them.
Okay. I'm afraid we'll need to take a quick commercial break, but I'm receiving lots of messages from Ugandans from all over the country watching the show. I see a message here from the Speaker of Kabarole District Local Government who says there is coffee called Karangura Peak coffee being processed in Karangura sub-county, one of the major producers of coffee, and they're exporting 57 tons. And the question is, what is the fate of such processors at that level with an agreement like this? I also see a message here from, I have also seen a message, someone is asking, ask if Vinci Coffee is really going to invest $80 million US. Why does the government then put 300 billion in the budget for 2022-2023 and another 300 billion in the budget for 2023-2024 over the same related project. Someone is asking this. Kindly share your name so that I'm able to put a name and a face to the person who's sending who are sending these messages for us to be able to ask. And someone